Yep. Basically, we're the only native wild beast sanctuary on the planet. We're I know that's a big claim to make, and we've reasons for that. We're basically we took a family farm here in Coolafancy near Tinahely. And we've owned it now for about 11, 12 years. And back in 2017, we decided to turn it into a native wild beast sanctuary. It's the size of it's 55 acres, the size of I suppose 31 football pitches. Give people an idea if they don't unless you like say unless you're a farmer or a builder, you generally don't know what size acreage is. So we're about size 31 football pitches, and we're mixed habitat. We've got a lot of wild areas, and we've got a wetland area, and we grow crops specifically to feed bees and birds. So basically, our role, I suppose, our mission is to let people know what's happening with bees and how they can help them. We advocate for bees full time. It isn't a lot of people in this space. They have full time jobs. They do it on the side, or else they're some are employed full time and they work 9 to 5 and then switch off. We're on this 24/7, 365. It's what we do. It's a mission, I suppose. Basically, our native wild bees are in trouble. We don't do honeybees here. A lot of people say that's why we say we're the only native wild bee sanctuary on the planet, because we don't keep hives. We don't sell honey. We don't get involved in that because honeybees aren't in trouble. They're a kept species or a farmed species, I suppose you could put it. And there's never been more honeybees on the planet in the history of the planet than there are at the moment. That's a quote I came across over the last couple of years. Whereas our native wild bees, our bumblebees, and our solitary bees are in serious trouble. In Ireland, I think it's one third of them are threatened with extinction or are endangered worldwide. Due to figures around 40%, and we're talking about bumblebees, solitary bees here now. We're not talking about honeybees. Again, I
Yeah,
keep having to say
native
that because
wild bees. Yeah.
yeah, because when you say bees to people, they tend to go to what they know. Most people know honeybees and they know hives and the guys with the suits and honey, and that's what they want to talk about. And that's what they see as bees. But when it comes down to it, there's a lot more to bees than honeybees. There's I think at the moment the latest figures we have, there's about 103 species of bee in Ireland, and only one of them is the honeybee. So we've got 21 bumblebees, and the rest of our solitary bees. The solitary bees, a lot of people don't even know exist. To be honest with you, they're very small. They're very kind of they don't while they can nest in like congregate in nests. Some of them they just have a small nest, and they're very small creature, and people wouldn't even know they exist unless they go looking for them, and they're all vital to our ecosystem. We need them. Bees pollinate a
Yeah.
huge amount of our food, our wildflowers. This is kind of it's out there. People know about this now. What we're finding is it's getting people to move on, to take action, and it's also getting the truth of what's going on and what needs to be done to people, not just the easy stuff. And that's where we come in. That's where we see our role is we tell the truth on what's going on, and we just people listen to it because we're a bee sanctuary, because um, we do it on the ground. We're not just doing it from an office or something like that. We live it every day. People tend to trust us on it, and that's where we come in.
Yeah, your website is the bee sanctuary of Ireland.com, and there's very interesting information there on all the native wild bees, and you have a great Instagram page. So if anybody would like to follow your Facebook and Instagram, you're always posting, beautiful photographs, really inspiring stuff. And always very interesting snippets of information on bees as you're going along. I think it's called your 3 p.m. daily
Yeah,
factor, that type of
it's
thing. Yeah.
the bee tree. It's something I started when we were I say we became a bee sanctuary 5 years ago, and we were going along. We were setting up to have visitors down, and then COVID hits, and everyone's locked away. And I was kind of sitting here one morning, and I kind of realized people were kind of bored and they were looking for something. And I was on Twitter at the time, and I just came up with this something called the hashtag the bee a tree, which is basically a bee fact every day at 3 o'clock. Just a very some of it's quite technical, but it just trying to put it across in language that people understand,
Yeah, very
and
good. And
it seemed to take off.
is it true you're the only wild bee sanctuary in the planet? And like, there's 103 species of native wild bee in Ireland, and 21 of these are bumblebees, and the rest are solitary bees, like you say. And if 1/3 of them are threatened with extinction and 40% of bees worldwide are in serious trouble, surely we should have a lot more than one native wild bee
Yeah.
sanctuary in the planet. What is going on?
Um, it's just something like say it struck me when like say going back 5 years I was sitting there and we'd some crops in the ground, we'd had rabbits and deer in to we'd gone away on a holiday and we'd rabbits and deer and they came in and ate them all as we came back a week later and they were gone. I was sitting there in the field full of clover and I could see the bees all over the place. And it just kind of, we knew the bees were in trouble and it kind of just struck me that how come we've got so many? Like we're organic and we're vegan organic here. We don't have any animal inputs on the sanctuary or nothing gets harmed at all. And we kind of, like I remember coming into Claire with my wife and saying to her, "Listen, we'll set it up as a bee sanctuary. We'll because we bought the place because of the wildlife and the biodiversity,
Yeah.
the nature that was on it." And like as I say all the time, she didn't kick me out. She went with it, but there was no model. There was nowhere to go. So how do we do this? And we started doing searches, and you come across a sanctuary, and then you find out they've got hives on it, and they're selling honey, and they've got a honey business. So it's not, in essence, a true sanctuary. While what might be good for nature, there's no place on a true wildlife sanctuary for honeybees, because
Yeah.
when you bring honeybees into the equation, and we see this all the time, and it's one of our something we've gone on about for years, which other people haven't mentioned and won't mention, they're only getting brave about it now, is the fact that if you bring a hive into an area, if you've got a honeybee hive, you could have a healthy hive with up to 60,000 bees in the summer. You could have, even an unhealthy hive, I suppose, would have 30,000 bees. If you have even a third of them out foraging on a daily basis, and each bee will visit up to 1,000, make it up to 1,000 flower visits a day, that quickly comes up into millions and millions of flower visits each day just to maintain this one hive. And we're in a situation now where our flowers and our forage for bumblebees and wild bees is diminishing because of what we're doing to nature and the way we're behaving. So when you bring that hive in, it makes a difference. So you've got all this competition, and there's been studies done to show what happens to bumblebee nests when in proximity to a hive. And we see people now they're introducing, like they want to hear the bees are in trouble, and they say we want to help them, and then they go, right, we'll put a hive in our back garden, or someone will come along and put a hive on a business rooftop or on a business premises and say, right, we're helping the bees. They're not. We need to start stating that they're keeping hives. It might make them appreciate nature a little bit more, and they might think about it because because of what they're doing. But they're not helping bees, and then in fact they might be having the opposite effect. And I mean, hives are moved around. There's the ability to spread disease. There's studies that have been done on this, and you get and say we're not anti-beekeeping. And we have a lot of beekeepers that follow us and love what we do, and a lot of beekeepers are into nature and biodiversity,
Yeah.
and we get that. But we also need to tell the truth about it. And if you want to keep a hive and you want to have honey, that's fine. Do it for that reason. That's what
Yeah.
you're doing. But don't turn around then and say, well, no, we're doing this to save the bees, because you're not.
Yeah, like the honeybee is one of 103 species in
Mm-hmm.
Ireland. So, yeah, like it behoves us to concentrate on
Yeah,
more than just one bee,
yeah,
with
yeah,
1/3 of them threatened with extinction in Ireland, you know. Um,
yeah.
can I ask you, what's happening at the moment? Um, this time of year, we're in April, with the bees in your beautiful wild sanctuary there in Coolafancy. And also, if anybody wants to visit, they can go on to the website and they can book a tour. And you're always looking for support and sponsorship
Yeah.
and that type of thing to expand and to make things better. So, just what is going on with the bees this time of year, Paul, in April?
Okay, well, basically, when we talk about bumblebees first. What happens is, at the end of last summer, the new queen bees go into hibernation, so they hibernate for the winter. So it depends on the weather, it depends on when it heats up. So come February, March, April, they come out of hibernation. They feel the sun. They come out of hibernation, and the first thing they need to do is they need to feed. They're hungry, as you would be, or I would be after being in slumber for that length of time. So basically, they go looking for food. So that's why early forage is so important for them. You're talking things like willow trees, dandelion, your wildflowers. So basically, dandelions are so important for at this time of year. Now, they're not, dandelion isn't always, some will say it's not the best forage for them. It doesn't have all the macronutrients or micronutrients they need and stuff like that. But in the absence of a lot of other flowers, because of what we've done, they're vital. So we say to people, don't cut your grass, don't cut your lawn, leave the dandelions. They're not a weed, they're a wildflower. If you actually look at them up close, they're beautiful. So we need to start respecting dandelions and what they do. So the bees basically feed up, and then you'll see them flying around close to the ground, like zigzagging all over the place. What they're doing is they're looking for a suitable nest site to set up home. So they'll investigate to see them in ditches, under sheds, even in compost heaps in your garden, anywhere there's a little bit of shelter, long grass, and they're in and out, and they go in for a couple of seconds or a minute or so, and you see them appear back out. So they're having a look, and what they're doing is they're looking for a suitable nest site. So they'll set up the nest site, the queen bumblebees, and then what they do is they'll lay their first batch of eggs. And with being on their own at this stage, the queen bee, she's everything. So our bees have to sit on their eggs to keep them warm, same as hens. And so basically what they'll do is they'll sit on the eggs, but they'll nip out and they'll forage in between, because they have to make a couple of thousand flower visits a day just to build up the energy to create the heat, to keep the eggs warm and to sustain themselves. So you'll see that's why it's so important this time of year. If you see a queen bee, I've had something up on social media recently about this. If you see a queen bee trapped in the polytunnel in your house, you need to let her out quickly, because bees, when they take on nectar with a full stomach, they basically only have enough energy to fly for about 40 minutes before they need to feed again. So if they spend a half an hour and you're trapped against your window and they can't get out, that's vital, because you're taking their energy, and they need to get back to the eggs before they cool down to keep them warm if they've already laid eggs. So, and what we say to people is, if you save a queen bee this time of year, it's a colony that gets to exist. That if that queen dies, the colony either doesn't happen or it fails. And if you bring that forward, it's something we call B to the power of 10. It's something we've come up with. Basically, if that colony, that queen that you save, gets to exist and even creates 10 new queens for next year, that's 10 new colonies next year. The following year, it's 10 by 10 is 100. And so within 5 years, that saving one bee theoretically could be responsible for 10,000 colonies of bees. So that's when people gave a small axe and helping out nature. That's a very simple way. Just to be, and yourself, or people, you're doing something on Saturday morning, you're at home and you're having a lie on, or you're doing something with the kids, and you hear a bee at the window, and you kind of go, "I'll get to it," and you might forget about it. We say, "No, get up immediately, get that bee out."
Yeah,
it's just a small act to do something urgent, and that can have a huge impact.
I was looking at your Instagram, and I was doing some sort of trawling through, just learning about the whole process, and some of the things that really spoke to me and I found really interesting was, we're all obsessed with humans and being so important and the apex of the species, but like biodiversity and nature is amazing. And when you said plants can hear nearby bees, how does that work? How does that happen?
They can sense them. They've done studies and they can sense them. It's to do with the electric current. And basically, when plants are negatively charged and bees are positive charged, but I'm very sure I've got that right. And basically, as they go by, the bees can sense, they feel that the slight change in their current in the hair, and they can sense the plants. So they basically communicate that way. So it's crazy when you think about it. I mean, this is stuff that's been happening for like millions and millions of years. They've developed together, and we're only realizing this now. There's a whole world of our a huge amount of stuff that goes on with plants and trees, and that we've no idea of. We're only learning about. So
if the bee has been around for 130 million years, and humankind has been around, I don't know, Paul, a few million or whatever. We need to be more respectful of what's going on. Really, like it's all interconnected. It's all, everything has a knock-on effect. And if bees were eliminated in the morning or whatever, plants wouldn't, it would just, let's not go there. As you said before, this is the second time we've had these informal chats. I think it was a year ago we had one on the same page, but there's theories that we would actually not exist, but some people say we would, some people say we wouldn't.
Exactly.
Let's not find out. Let's actually do something positive and look after the bees and help.
We have something that works great the way it is. So why try and mess it up? You know what I mean? I came across someone was talking to me. It was a conversation I had a couple of years back, and what we tend to do as humans is we look at everything obviously from a human viewpoint, and what we need to do in our ecosystems, in our backyards, in our communities, is we need to look at what the weakest link is in that community, be it bees, be it badgers, whatever it is, and if we make it right for the weakest link in that system, everything else will be okay.
Yeah.
But we tend to look at it from a human point of view. I mean, people talk about bees, and the first thing they start talking about is, oh, how they, and we say it ourselves, how they pollinate so much of our food, But they have a right to exist and to thrive on their own. It shouldn't be at the behest of. Well, they're of use to us, and that's what we tend to do with everything. It's because it's of use to us, and it
Yeah.
should be things have a right to exist and be and thrive, regardless of whether they're of use to us. That's the way it should be, and that's the only way it's going to be healthy when we come to that realization.
Yeah. There was some other interesting ones there that I was reading about. How important are antennae for bees in terms of communicating? And you mentioned also that sometimes when bees meet other bees after an absence, they're shy and they're sort
Yeah,
of you
yeah.
know,
They've done they basically they use the antenna for base smelling and communication, and for they it's when a bee meets another bee, they'll from the same they'll touch antennae and there's a chemical transfer there, and they learn who the other bee is. They learn to recognize the other bee from that touch. And they did research where they kind of kept bees kind of isolated, and they presumed that they'd be kind of socially awkward. They were socially awkward, but they were also friendlier. They were also more willing to go and to touch the antenna with the other bees. So it was not what they expected. They thought they wouldn't know how to go on. But it's again it's like we tend to think, oh, they have noses and they smell, and that they don't. They use their antenna to do that. And again, another point on that is the size of the antenna matter as well, because the bigger the antenna, the more they can smell. So basically, they're more used. They're better for them.
wow,
So
yeah.
it's
Another one was bees can actually survive underwater longer than humans.
yeah.
Um,
They again, it leads on to another point, that one about bees need water. So over the summer, as it gets warm, we'd ask everyone to make sure there's water in their garden, and not just a bowl. There has to be some like a shallow water with a slope into it, say stones or something like that. So bees can climb in and out, or they can, if they fall in, they're able to climb out, but they can land beside the water and drink out of it without actually getting into the water. But if they do end up in water, theoretically they can survive longer than humans, because they breathe through there's a series of holes along their body which they breathe through, called spiracles, and they've the ability to shut them down or to close them off. So they'd have air stored in the body, so they'd have a certain amount of air there which they could survive in. But again, we don't want to put them in that situation if
yeah, yeah, yeah.
we can help it. So again, and also if you've buckets of water around you in your garden, try and keep them covered over so that they don't swimming pools. If you're lucky enough to have a swimming pool in your garden, and it keep an eye out for them, because if they get in, they can't climb out. They need a slow kind of a gradual slope or something they can
Yeah.
actually climb up and cling to get
And
out.
it is water they drink. It is like,
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
they do. They get a certain amount of what they need from when they're foraging on flowers. But what they also need, they need water, and dirty water is better. And I'm not talking about water full of pesticides or chemicals or something, but like if water that
yeah.
has algae in it, or kind of mucky, because they get micronutrients from the water as well, and they sense the water from smell. They can actually smell the
And
water.
how do they locate water? So, it's to do with the antennae again, is it?
Again,
Or
again, again, it's smell. Yeah, they can smell. I suppose that's why if the water's slightly dirty too, I presume it's going to have a slightly stronger smell. But it's from smell that they sense the water. It's using the antennae. Yeah.
how important is the queen bee and what's her role? Obviously we all know that the hive can't survive without the queen, but
Yeah.
you know, um, how does that evolve? Like they move on to another hive, they bring on royal jelly. Can you just maybe briefly. I know you could do a whole lecture on that,
Yeah.
but like,
To be honest with you, we don't like talking that much about honeybees, and the reason for that is because people then talk about them. We're more bumblebees and solitary bees.
yeah, yeah,
The bumblebee queen is like she's everything to the bumblebee. Like she establishes the nest, and then she basically controls it and decides when there's going to be males, when there's going to be new queens, and then at the end of the year, she'll survive for a year in total, and then at the end of the year, she dies, and as do the female workers and the males, and then there's the new queens for next year. So the bumblebee queen is
yeah,
everything for the nest.
yeah,
When it comes to solitary bees, they don't have a queen.
yeah,
Like every female is basically sets up her own small individual nest. They provision. She lays mates lays the eggs, provision with food, and then they die off. They're only on the wing for a couple of weeks, most of them. So
wow,
it's from that point of view, it is from point of view of honeybees. Again, it's we don't really talk about them, and the reason for that is,
yeah,
again, people want to go there. That's what they know. So what we say is we'll end up talking about that for hours, and people go away thinking I'll get a hive. So we just say we'll talk about bumblebees, we'll talk about solitary
yeah,
bees. There's guys that like you've got your beekeepers association, that, and they basically that's their thing. So we kind of leave them to talk about that, if that's okay.
yeah, and
Yeah.
the honey itself, for bumblebees and solitary bees, or the nectar they gather. Um, what's the role there, and how vital is that? Obviously, it's their food to survive, but like, is
Yeah.
there?
They basically they collect pollen, and that's basically their protein, and then the nectar is the carbohydrates or sugar. The pollen also has their micronutrients in it. So basically, what the bumblebee will do is they make little honey pots, and they fill it with nectar, just so when she's on her eggs, she's got to kind of store there just a small amount. But when it comes to bumblebees, they basically never have enough or more than a couple of days food stored in the nest. So basically, if things get bad, if there's trouble, they can be in trouble very quickly with it. Whereas your honeybees they'll keep making honey, and they'll have it stored there, and it's because they tend to survive over the winter. Then what they'll do is that's what they're stored there. So they're always creating honey. Whereas, like say, the bumblebees will only store enough for a couple of days. Your solitary bees, again, what they'll do is they're out foraging all the time for themselves. But what they'll do is they when they have their nest, they'll create little individual pods where they lay an egg, and then they'll leave some pollen and nectar in with the eggs to keep the young going for until the following spring. So they'll sit there basically, and then they'll hatch out, and they'll stay in there over the winter and come out the following spring for a couple. So they need enough food in there for that time. So basically, that's what it is. I mean they're out. They're foraging. They'll forage at different times of the day for pollen and for nectar, depending on what weather it is. If it's damp weather or wet weather, they tend to forage more for nectar, because the pollen is harder to brush into the pollen baskets on their legs and to store it. So there's all these different things going on. But basically, they're out looking all the time for nectar. The pollen, basically, why they're so good at pollination is they're so hairy, basically, and also they can be messy as well. So you get your bumblebees. They're so hairy that they collect it on it. And one thing I will say about honeybees, I think we mentioned it briefly before, they have hairy eyes.
Yeah,
That's
the hairy eyeball, the bee hairy eyeball.
yeah, which sounds
The
really
native
really
bee.
strange. But there's even there's a very specific to that, in that the distance between the hairs on their eyes is the size of a dandelion pollen grain. And the reasoning for that is that it keeps the pollen suspended above the eye. So while the pollen in their eyes, it's not actually in the eye; it's on the hair. So then they can collect it afterwards. So everything is like it's a well-oiled machine, if you know what I mean. If
Yeah,
we'd stay out of the
yeah,
way,
yeah.
everything would be fine.
130 million years to get it right, Paul.
Yeah, and
Let's
they've been
not
getting
mess with it.
yeah. Well, what's sad about that is, and if we're really honest about it, is like we've messed it up within the 100 years. Like
Yeah,
then, like you
yeah.
literally,
In
and
the
then even
last 100 years of
yeah, yeah,
130 million.
yeah, and
It's
then
just,
the last 50 specifically, and it's down to, again, it's something we can keep it nice and chat about these, but we always like to get to the point where we have to say, listen, it's what we eat, it's how we produce our food,
yeah,
and it's what we've done to the landscape. Climate change is kicking in now, and there's a lot of stuff that's not said, that kind of it's very simple stuff, and it's very basic stuff, and it should be said about, like going to your garden centre and picking up plants, or if you're in tidy towns, when you're buying plants for your tidy town, most of them are pre-treated with a cocktail of chemicals, and we don't know this, or it's like it doesn't want to be known. It's like the peat was kind of the the dirty little secret of the horticulture and gardening industry. But this is worse, I think, because people going out and they buy plants that are labeled bee friendly, or they've looked, researched, and said these are the plants that are good for bees, put in your garden, and then when they bring them home, put them in, they're pre-treated. And we've checked this. There was a study done in the UK 5 years ago, and with like your larger supermarket chains, your garden centres, and they were, most of them were pre-treated with chemicals which are bad for soil, bad for insects, bad for bees. And we've checked here, we've rang around a few places, and what you get is, if and we ask people to ask this, because if we can get this out there and get people interested in it, and get them active in it, we can change it. But because the industry will supply what's demanded, as you know yourself, it's what people want. So if people are looking for plants that are not treated, the supply will match that demand. So when we ask people, if you go into your, ask them are they treated, and what you get is, oh, we don't know. And then you ask again, they'll go, we go and check, and they'll come back 5 minutes later and they go, well, we don't treat them here, possibly. And then if you ask, but are they treated? But then they'll eventually admit you, they're probably treated before they come in. And it's a very basic thing that a lot of people aren't talking about. And if we talk about it and do it, we'll change it. Otherwise, it's kind of it's a pretend solution.
I suppose that's why we're having these discussions, and we should probably do them more often, to be honest. I think it's over a year since we met, or maybe less than a year, but last time we met, there were 98 species of wild bees, native wild bees, and now I believe is it 103? Some people say
103, 102, 103. It depends. There was a guy, in, I think it's Carlo. I haven't had the chance to look at it properly. And he came across a solitary bee that they thought, I think, was extinct, or wasn't in Ireland since the 1970s. So that's I presume that's you kind of, at what stage does it become that we have a population, or there's one beside it? There's that kind of grey area there. The hairy footed flower bee came in, I think, last year, and there was another solitary bee as well. So it's always, again, I always think with these things that it's as much as it depends on how many people are looking out for them as well. And like, we're not checking every location for every bee all the time. So it's kind of an approximation, I suppose. And you get a sighting and a recording, and if that's the only one, but they're in around 102, 103, which is, it's, again, it opens up. I've had people ask me as well about it. So if a bee comes over or flies over from the UK that hasn't been here before, because the weather started, climate's changing, and we're getting a bit warmer possibly, or is it an invasive species? What effect is it going to have on the ecosystem? So there's all that comes into it as well. So even though we can say, oh, we've got more bees coming in, it doesn't mean we could have 10 new bees in the next year. I'm not saying we will, but like, theoretically we could have 10 new, but it doesn't mean things are getting better for bees. It just means things are changing. You know what I mean? So what we like to see is, like, let's try and save what we've got here already. We're not be worried about the many numbers.
And I think we're coming up to the half-hour mark now, so maybe if you're okay with it, we'll do another one sooner rather than later. We won't leave it another 12 months. But I suppose the last question would be, where, if it could be just watch this space would be the comment, but what are your plans? You have a fantastic facility there in Coola Fancy, as I say, 5 kilometers from Tinnahealy. I would encourage everybody to get on to the beesanctuaryofireland.com, book a tour, businesses, get involved, sponsor you guys. There's loads of different opportunities for the right business that is, caring of the environment. Basically, where would you see yourselves developing and going, or is it a question of working with what you have, or?
Yeah, we're basically, to be honest with you, we spend so much time advocating and shouting about it and trying to get the message across. We tend to forget to ask people to help us, and that's the truth. I'll go off like a chat like this and go, oh, I never even gave the website out, because we're just so passionate about what we do and the message we want to get across. So we have 2 websites at the moment. We've got the beesanctuaryofireland.com, and we've got another one called savingbees.ie. which is basically kind of a shortened, abridged version of the other one, and it allows people to help us more often or easier. We're looking to we want to have more impact than we're having. We feel we're having great impact. Like I said, we had a thread up on Twitter there in the last week or so, which had over a million impressions worldwide, and people get coming back, and they're basically they're changing what they're doing worldwide because of what we're saying here, which is great. It's kind of like the little farm that could, you know what I mean? We're only a small farm. We don't have any real backing. We've no marketing budget, and we're still able to have that impact because we're so real about what we do. So what we've done a lot of what we do, we like to have people through here, and again at the moment it's been so wet that we can't even walk people through. We're waiting for it to dry up. We do bring people through on tours. They can book through our website or get in touch with us, and we'll have say a small amount down, a small few at a time, which we charge for, which we have to because we have to be here. We're very much looking at getting involved with businesses, but businesses that are want to be real about it and want to help us have the impact. As much as we can save bees here on the sanctuary. Our impact, and we've kind of pivoted more to online because we realize while we love having people through and showing off what we do in real time here, and we can have say 15 or 20 people through and we'll spend 3 hours with them, and it's a great experience. We can get to a lot more people online, so we're hoping that
maybe an
we'll find
idea
some
might
partner.
be, you see some websites, they do live tours and that type of stuff.
Yeah,
So
we're
whereas maybe you might have 20 people through. If you do through, I won't mention the sites names, but if you do these sites, you might get 500 people clocking on and watching as you go around and show the areas and do your talk. So that would be fantastic. I look forward to that, and we'd be happy to help with that or promote it if we could.
That's great. Like you say, it's all with us. It's time, because we'd have, to be honest, we have so many people getting in touch, looking to do stuff with us, and to like, and we like to keep it personal with people. We think that gets lost with a lot of the bigger NGOs. You don't know who you're talking to. I mean, you'll always find our telephone number on the site. We'll always try and talk to you. We'll always get back to you, and that takes time. There's only myself and my wife, and my son helps out when he can. You know what I mean? So from that point of view, but we'd love to partner up and have a lot more impact, because we have big plans off the sanctuary, which I won't go into here now. But it's not just about this sanctuary here, because we want to have impact internationally, because we're not up ourselves about it. We're not overly confident about it, but we're very real about it. What we say is very true, and it seems to resonate with people. We have a way of doing it that resonates with people, and people. I say, like, you ask us back, we're always asked back.
Yeah.
So that says something.
Well, look, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Likewise.
My camera is kind of tilted, so people have been seeing my chin at the start. So I'm sorry.
I'm in natural light here with the weather, the clouds keep going dark as well. So if that happened, I'm sorry.
So it's been a pleasure talking to you, and like I say, we will hopefully do it sooner rather than later again. And thank you very much for your time, and best of luck with the